In the serene dawn at Silver Ridge Wildlife Haven, 3 wolf cubs were rescued from the clutches of an illegal wildlife trade. Tragically, their mother did not survive the ordeal. The cubs, placed in the haven, became withdrawn, refusing to eat due to the trauma of losing their mother. When traditional methods failed and hope began to fade, a bold idea emerged. The haven decided to introduce a gentle rescue dog named Willow to act as a surrogate mother. Could a rescue dog, a new mother herself, be the key to saving these wild lives? What started as a desperate attempt blossomed into an extraordinary bond, defying expectations and rewriting the rules of wildlife rehabilitation. This is a heartwarming tale of an unlikely connection as Willow, the gentle mutt, steps in to nurture the struggling wolf cubs. The morning sun had just begun to warm the hills surrounding Silver Ridge Wildlife Haven when Sarah Thompson's phone rang. At 58, Sarah had thought she'd seen it all in her 30 years of wildlife rehabilitation, but the urgency in Ranger Tom's voice suggested otherwise. "We've got 3 wolf cubs," Tom said. "Tiny things, confiscated from a poacher trying to sell them at a gas station outside of Boise." His voice faltered. "We lost the mother. She was too far gone, starved and injured." Sarah closed her eyes, her calloused hand tightening around the phone. Another victim of the illegal exotic pet trade plaguing Idaho's remote regions. "How old?" she asked, already mentally preparing for the care they'd need. "No more than 4 weeks. They're refusing food, Sarah. All 3. The vet says they're fading fast." 30 minutes later, Sarah stood in the haven's small examination room, looking down at 3 trembling bundles of gray fur, each small enough to fit in her hand. Their eyes, a cloudy blue, were wide with fear, their tiny bodies quivering with hunger and grief. The smallest, a female with a distinct silver streak on her muzzle, let out a faint whimper that pierced the quiet morning air. "Oh, little ones," Sarah whispered, gently brushing the smallest cub with a finger. It flinched, growling weakly. "I know you miss your mama. I'm so sorry." For 3 days, Sarah tried every technique she knew. Bottle feedings were rejected, and syringe feedings caused such distress that the male cub suffered seizure. The cubs huddled together in their heated enclosure, 3 shrinking specks of fur, their eyes growing dimmer each day. On the 4th morning, Sarah sat in her office, head in her hands, the haven's budget reports forgotten on her desk. Silver Ridge was her life's work, built on land inherited from her father in Idaho's rugged backcountry. At nearly 60, her face bore the lines of countless rescues and the heartaches that came with them. Her graying hair was tied back in a practical braid, her hands rough from years of labor. Her granddaughter, Mia, a 22-year-old wildlife biology student interning at the Haven, knocked softly before entering. "I heard you didn't sleep last night, Gran," she said, placing a mug of tea on the desk. Mia had her grandmother's fierce blue eyes and practical spirit, but her approach was shaped by modern research Sarah hadn't had access to in her early days. Sarah sighed. "Those wolf cubs won't last another day without nutrition. I've tried everything, Mia. Everything." Mia perched on the desk, her expression thoughtful. "Not everything, Gran. What about Willow?" Sarah's head snapped up. "Willow? She's barely a year old herself. And she's a dog, Mia. A rescue mutt." "A rescue mutt who just weaned a litter of puppies 3 weeks ago," Mia countered, her eyes bright with the idea. "She's still lactating a bit, and she's the gentlest soul I know." "It's too risky," Sarah began, but Mia interrupted. "Riskier than letting those cubs starve? You always said sometimes rehabilitation means trying the impossible." Sarah stared at her granddaughter, memories flooding back of her mentor's words from years ago. Sometimes nature needs a nudge to connect dots it wouldn't on its own. "Get Willow," Sarah said at last. "But we do this carefully, Mia. Very carefully." Willow had arrived at the Haven the previous fall, a pregnant stray found shivering in a ditch during a rare Idaho snowstorm. A medium-sized dog of mixed heritage, perhaps some collie, some husky, and a touch of something else. Her soft chestnut fur and warm amber eyes radiated patience. After giving birth in the Haven's clinic, she proved to be an exceptional mother, and her 5 puppies were quickly adopted by families in the nearby town of Clearwater. Willow had become a Haven favorite, trailing Sarah on her rounds, her calm presence soothing many of the injured animals. Sarah had meant to find her a permanent home, but somehow, that plan kept getting postponed. They brought Willow to a quiet room next to the wolf cub's enclosure. Sarah sat on the floor, cradling the smallest cub, the female with the silver streak, in a soft blanket. The cub's breathing was faint, her body cool despite the heated pad. "Easy, Willow," Sarah murmured as Mia led the dog in. "Easy, girl." Willow's nose twitched, her ears pricking forward. She approached slowly, her tail giving small, hesitant wags. When she reached Sarah, she lowered her head, sniffing the tiny bundle. The cub stirred, giving a weak growl that seemed to drain her last reserves. Sarah braced herself, ready to pull the cub away at any sign of trouble. But what happened next would stay with her forever. Willow whined softly, a sound eerily like the one she made when seeking her puppies. She lay down beside Sarah, her head stretched toward the cub, and began to lick it with gentle, motherly strokes. The cub, instead of pulling away as it had from human touch, grew still. After a moment, it turned its tiny face toward Willow's warmth, seeking comfort. "Gran," Mia whispered, her eyes wide. "Look." Tears welled in Sarah's eyes as she carefully placed the cub closer to Willow. The dog curled around it, continuing to groom the tiny creature as if it were her own. One by one, they brought the other 2 cubs in, and the same miracle unfolded. Willow accepted each one, gathering them against her warm body, grooming them with maternal care. Within an hour, all 3 cubs were nestled against her belly, and to Sarah's astonishment, they began to nurse. "It's not perfect nutrition," Sarah murmured, watching the cubs suckle weakly. "We'll still need to supplement with formula if they'll take it. But this connection might save them." Mia squeezed her grandmother's shoulder. "Sometimes the best medicine is love, Gran. You taught me that." Over the next week, a transformation unfolded that defied Sarah's decades of experience. Under Willow's constant care, the wolf cubs began to thrive. They gained weight, their fur grew sleeker, and their eyes sparkled with curiosity. Willow never left their side, grooming them, gently carrying them by the scruff when they wandered too far, and growling softly when their play grew too rough. The Haven staff named the cubs Streak, the female with the silver muzzle, Ranger, the larger male, and Sprout, the smaller male who was the first to explore. Sarah documented everything, taking photos and videos, keeping detailed notes on their progress. This interspecies adoption was unprecedented in her career, and she recognized its potential to inform wildlife rehabilitation. By 8 weeks, the cubs were eating solid food, a mix of specialized formula and small bits of meat, though they still slept curled against Willow's warmth each night. Their play became distinctly wolf-like, with stalking, pouncing, and wrestling. Willow watched with maternal patience, occasionally joining their games, but mostly serving as a safe haven. "They're developing perfectly," Sarah reported to Dr. Carter, the Haven's consulting veterinarian, during a visit. "No signs of human imprinting, which is critical." Dr. Carter, a woman in her 40s who specialized in wildlife medicine, nodded as she examined Ranger. "Their physical development is excellent, but I'm worried about their attachment to Willow. These cubs will need to be released or placed in a proper facility. They can't stay with a dog forever." Sarah had been avoiding this truth, though she knew it was inevitable. The Haven's mission was rehabilitation, with release as the goal whenever possible. For animals that couldn't be released, they sought placement in appropriate facilities. Keeping wild animals as pets, even in a haven, went against her principles. "We'll deal with that when the time comes," she said, watching as Sprout darted back to Willow. "For now, she's giving them what they need." Dr. Carter cautioned, "The longer they stay with her, the harder the separation will be." By 4 months, the cubs had become the Haven's unofficial mascots. Volunteers watched from a distance as they practiced hunting leaps on pine cones or each other's tails. Willow remained their constant companion, her role shifting from mother to playmate and protector. Sarah knew decisions loomed. The cubs were growing fast, their puppy fluff giving way to sleek adult coats, their blue eyes turning to the amber of mature wolves. "We've had interest from the Rocky Valley Preserve in Montana," Mia told Sarah one evening as they sat on the porch of Sarah's cabin, watching the sunset gild the lodgepole pines. "They have a top-notch wolf habitat and educational program. All three could stay together." Sarah nodded, her heart heavy. "It's a great option, but we need to start separating them from Willow soon, before the transfer." The next day, they tried. While the cubs ate, they moved Willow to Sarah's cabin, a quarter-mile from the enclosure. The reaction was immediate and distressing. The cubs paced frantically, howling mournfully, refusing food, and scratching at the enclosure doors. Willow, meanwhile, whined and scratched at Sarah's door until her paws bled. "This isn't working," Mia said after 4 hours of escalating distress. "Streak hasn't stopped howling since we took Willow away." Sarah watched through the observation window as the smallest cub sat in the enclosure center, her head raised, calling desperately for her surrogate mother. "Bring Willow back," Sarah said. "We'll try a slower approach." The reunion was heart-wrenching. Willow burst into the enclosure, swarmed by 3 ecstatic cubs, all yipping and nuzzling her. Sarah and Mia exchanged worried glances. The bond was stronger than they'd realized. For 2 weeks, they tried gradual separation, shorter periods apart, adjacent enclosures, increasing distances. Nothing worked. The cubs grew depressed without Willow, and Willow showed signs of anxiety. "I've never seen anything like it," Sarah confessed to Dr. Carter over the phone. "They've forgotten their different species. They're a family." "It's rare but not unheard of," Dr. Carter replied. "The question is what's best for their long-term welfare." The decision came to a head when representatives from Rocky Valley Preserve arrived to evaluate the cubs. Laura Bennett, their head zoologist, observed the unusual family for a day before meeting Sarah. "They're healthy, strong wolves," she said, reviewing her notes. "But separating them from the dog could cause serious stress." "So you won't take them?" Sarah asked, torn between relief and disappointment. Bennett smiled. "I didn't say that. What if we took Willow too?" Sarah blinked. "She's a domestic dog. She belongs in a home." "Hear me out," Bennett said. "Our preserve has staff housing. One of our keepers, Elena, wants a companion animal. Willow could live with her, but spend supervised time with the cubs daily. As the wolves mature, we could gradually reduce that time, avoiding trauma." The idea was radical, but it made sense. The preserve had resources Sarah's Haven couldn't match. After discussions with the Haven's board and a video call with Elena, Sarah agreed. The departure was bittersweet. Sarah and Mia accompanied the animals to Montana in a specialized van, Willow staying close to the crated cubs, whining softly to reassure them. Rocky Valley Preserve was stunning, nestled in Montana's mountains with vast habitats and expert staff. Elena, a kind, knowledgeable keeper in her 30s, impressed Sarah immediately. "They'll have 4 acres of forested habitat," Elena explained, showing the prepared enclosure. "It's designed to encourage natural behaviors." The cubs' introduction went smoothly with Willow present, reassuring them as they explored. By sunset, they were climbing rocks and logs, Willow watching attentively. When Willow went to Elena's cabin for the night, Sarah braced for distress, but the cubs' reaction was milder, perhaps distracted by their new surroundings. Over the next 6 months, Sarah received updates and visited occasionally. The cubs thrived, growing into strong subadult wolves. Willow adapted to life with Elena, enjoying domestic comforts while visiting her wolf family daily. As the cubs matured, their bond with Willow shifted from dependency to companionship. 18 months later, a crisis emerged. Elena called, her voice tight. "Ranger is sick, Sarah. Dr. Ellis thinks it's a bacterial infection. He's not responding to treatment and won't eat." Sarah, now 60 and nearing retirement, felt her heart sink. "How bad?" "Bad enough that we're worried," Elena said. "He's withdrawn, won't let anyone near." "I'm coming," Sarah said, "and bring Willow to him." When Sarah arrived, Ranger had been ill for 3 days, growing weaker despite treatment. "We can't medicate him without sedation, and he's too weak for that," Dr. Ellis explained. They found Elena outside the quarantine room, Willow alert at her side. She knows something's wrong, Elena said. She's been restless since Ranger got sick. Through the observation window, Sarah saw Ranger curled in a corner, his coat dull, his breathing labored. Let Willow in, Sarah said. Let's see if she can reach him. They fitted Willow with a harness and leash, then opened the door. Willow entered slowly, spotting Ranger and whining softly. He raised his head, his amber eyes finding her. For a moment, he seemed disoriented. Then he made a faint, familiar sound, a greeting from his cub days. Willow approached, lying beside him and grooming his face gently, as she had when he was tiny. What happened next stunned everyone. Ranger, who had refused food for days, allowed Dr. Ellis to approach with medicated broth. With Willow's comforting presence, he lapped at it weakly. I'll be damned, Dr. Ellis whispered. For 3 days, Willow stayed with Ranger, encouraging him to eat and seeming to lend him strength. When Streak and Sprout visited briefly, the scene, 3 grown wolves and their canine mother, moved Sarah to tears. Ranger's recovery was steady. By week's end, he was eating and regaining energy, the infection responding to treatment. It's remarkable, Dr. Ellis said as Ranger took his first walk around the quarantine area, Willow at his side. I've never seen a bond like this. Love transcends species, Sarah said, reflecting on her decades of work. Elena suggested Willow accompany Ranger back to the habitat for a day to settle him with his siblings. With supervision, the reunion was magical. The wolves gathered around Willow, purring and nuzzling, then settled beside her as they had as cubs, a perfect harmony of wild and domestic. This is why I've done this work, Sarah told Mia, who had joined her. For moments that show healing comes in unexpected ways. In the years that followed, the wolves matured, their need for Willow lessening, but their bond enduring. Willow, aging gracefully, continued daily visits, now more friend than mother. The Haven and Preserve published a paper on the case, advancing wildlife rehabilitation knowledge. Sarah, retiring at 65, used the story in lectures. Sometimes the most powerful medicine isn't in a syringe, she'd say, showing photos of Willow and her wolves. It's in connection, in meeting a need that transcends species. On quiet evenings, visiting the preserve, Sarah would watch Willow, now elderly, sitting by the habitat fence, the 3 adult wolves lounging nearby. The impossible, Sarah would murmur, recalling her doubts when Mia first suggested Willow. Sometimes the impossible is exactly what's needed. In the fading light, wild and domestic, rescuer and rescued, they remained a family, a testament to love without boundaries.